Hey, deserving listeners, Ultimatum, the Marry or Move On, Kirk Honda, Psychology in Seattle, you. Let's watch.
I'm trying to understand exactly your motivation in all of this. Are you here to continue in a relationship with Kat? Are you here to break up with Kat? Or are you here to leave with Roxanne?
None of the above.
Okay, interesting. So I think that means that he doesn't want to be with Roxanne or Kat. Huh. I mean, so if I review my notes, Kat gave the ultimatum, and Alex says he's been too busy to propose. So, well, I mean, hopefully, if I understand him right, he, tells Kat he doesn't want to be with her. But anyway, yeah, I was wondering, because the on-camera stuff between Alex and Roxanne seemed like they were really hitting it off. But then we hear Roxanne just completely talking about how Alex is one of the worst people on the planet. I mean, I'm exaggerating a little bit. And then I was worried that Alex would be like, oh my God, I'm totally into Roxanne. But it sounds like he doesn't want to be with Roxanne either.
Okay, you have to do one of the three.
Well, I have to do one, but it is a byproduct of...
I feel like you've kind of dodged a lot of the point of what I ask you. I mean, I'm curious if your hesitation to answer the question directly is to spare me or to spare you.
Interesting. That's kind of a therapy-ish question, or I don't know what to call it, like the kinds of pop psychology questions that emerge from psychology people, from therapists. So I wonder if he has some kind of knowledge about that, or he just made it up himself, which is fine. But that is a good question to consider, maybe to ask people that, are you doing this to save my feelings, or are you doing it to save your feelings? Because if you're doing it to save my feelings, that's nice of you. And maybe there's a conversation there of just like, you don't have to do it for my feelings. And I think that's what Antonio would say. But if you're doing it for your feelings, then that's kind of on you. And you need to figure that out for yourself and put that aside for now and just tell me the answer. It can help us, and maybe for us to consider, right? Am I not breaking up with my partner? I want to break up with them, but I don't want to do it because I don't want to hurt their feelings. Are you doing it for your partner's feelings, or are you doing it for your feelings? It puts a mirror, and you are given an opportunity to say like, oh, is it? And it might not be, but it might be that you're doing it not for the other person, but you're doing it for you because you don't want to be shamed or attacked, or you don't want to have the pain of knowing that you hurt someone else's feelings or whatever. There's your feelings as well. At the very least, you should be aware of that and not solely focused on what is going on outside of you.
I would say it's more to spare you.
Well, don't spare me.
She kind of is mean, is the easy way to say it. I feel bad saying I think you're Roxanne's whipping boy.
Yeah, given the edit, it's hard to not consider that as a possibility. I mean, it's a harsh thing to say, but yeah, I mean, mean, that's a great word. I wish people, when everyone on the internet's just like, oh, he's a narcissist, I wish people just said, instead of narcissist, they just said, he's a meanie, because that's really what you're saying. He's mean. And I think that because so many people have claimed someone as mean or unfair, when it was demonstrated that it wasn't true that the person was mean or unfair, as a society, we start to drift towards more and more severe language. It's sort of like how people talk about gaslighting all the time, when 7 years ago and prior, people would use more down-to-earth language, like, you're lying to me, or you're trying to deceive me, you're trying to trick me. For whatever reason, those words lost their value, lost their oomph. And so as a society, people start looking, it's sort of like, this is all just my theory, my hypothesis about linguistics and the shifting of language, but and I'm sure linguists have all sorts of theory about this that either demonstrates or either supports or refutes this, but these are just my own ideas, that the word literally, how people will use increasingly the word literally to actually mean figuratively. But I think what they are using it for is for emphasis. They're trying to say, this actually happened, and they confused the word literally, because the word literally before meant that it's non-figuratively, right? Like you wouldn't say, "Oh my God, you literally blew my mind," right? So when people are saying that, and that phrase has been said many times. I mean, I might have even said it at times because I'm affected by society, and I started using literally to mean because what you really are, in terms of the dictionary 10 years ago, you would want to say, you figuratively blew my mind, because, it's not literal. The use of literal would be like, like if someone told you something surprising, and then you were so surprised you kicked your foot and your socks fell off your feet, and you'd be like, oh my God, that was so amazing! You literally knocked my socks off. Okay, because you actually did. My socks came off. It's a figurative phrase typically, but you have to emphasize literally, because I don't want you to confuse. I'm not saying figuratively. I'm saying literally. So I think when people heard those phrases, they didn't necessarily understand what the word literally meant, but by context, it seems to mean emphasis. Like, you didn't just knock my socks off; you literally did. It's a way to emphasize, and I think that because people feel like their statements lack power or have been stripped of power, that they have to escalate it. I see this, and I don't know if social media has accelerated this or things have always been this way. Historians and linguists would have more information about that. And if you are one, then let me know. But there's also a lot of this in racist discourse, because the word racist, when I was growing up, was an extreme label that was reserved for particular people. And for various reasons, some good, some not so good, the word racist has lost, to me, I'm 52. When I was younger, even just 25 years ago, if I heard someone calling someone a racist, there's a certain association that I would have with it that would be pretty extreme. Today, if I heard someone calling, particularly online, I would have almost no emotion about it, because I've seen so many people using that word in the most ridiculous ways. Now, many people are using the word in legitimate ways and important ways. I'll use it in important ways, or not important, but in ways that are accurate to the term, meaning that someone has attitudes that they believe that certain races are more superior than others, and other kinds of associations and behaviors. But because certain words lose their power, people amp them up. They have to come up with these more severe words. Anyway, where am I going with this? So my original point was that I like that Alex just said, I think Roxanne is mean. It's refreshing, because I don't hear people, that's a big word. If someone is mean, I mean, to me, that's one of the worst. People can call me a lot of names. If they called me mean, that would be very concerning to me. If I was mean, that would be one of the worst things I could ever think. But given today's discourse, it sounds like this really lackluster term, but it's a big deal. What does it mean? When someone's mean to someone, they are either purposely or semi-purposely trying to hurt you. I mean, that's awful, right? So I wish people, instead of calling someone a narcissist, they just said they were mean. I think we should, just return to the first grade vocabulary. Make language great again. Oh, God.
I feel bad saying, I think you're Roxanne's whipping boy. She doesn't respect you.
You think she doesn't respect me?
I think she trusts you.
You think she respects you?
I don't know. It doesn't matter, to be honest. I feel like she doesn't respect you.
Well, I'd like to
Kat
know
said
exactly what she said then, if you think she doesn't respect me.
Okay, so Antonio, I think, is being a little combative. You know, we can understand that he would feel insulted. I wonder if Antonio feels like Alex is trying to put a wedge between the two of them, between Antonio and Roxanne, so that Alex can have Roxanne. So I wonder if Alex could do better by saying, hey, I just want to say I'm putting it out there, and I want to say that I kind of already committed, you know, we can't tell the producers, but, you know, I don't want to be with Roxanne. I think, you know, long story short, I don't think we work well together at all. I'm only saying this to you because I guess I care about you. I don't know you that well, but I think I feel bad for you. The way that I hear her talk about you, the way I saw you guys interacting, the way she treats me, I think I could see her being particularly bad towards you. And, you know, I just feel like you don't deserve that. Take it or leave it. You know, maybe it would help if you said that. And maybe that wouldn't help. It's also possible that that is what's being communicated and received, but Antonio just feels insulted or defensive. Maybe he feels like he's being alphaed or something. I don't know. Alex, I think, is starting to try to be a little bit more diplomatic and tentative about this. Let's see how they manage.
In so many words, not heading the right direction without the great Roxanne would be nowhere, is going to be this big loser, is just isn't going to get things done. Yeah.
That's no way that's what she said. Exactly.
Yeah, but she has said things along those lines, and I wouldn't be surprised if she had said things like that before, honestly, and maybe Antonio actually doesn't hear her say those kinds of things, which would be kind of surprising given that they've broken up so many times. You know, you imagine if this is how Roxanne just casually talks about it, imagine in the middle of a fight, you know, but who knows, maybe he's never heard. But it's not hard to imagine that Roxanne has a belief that has been communicated that she thinks that he's a loser or something in that camp. And it's not hard to believe that Antonio would have heard that at least once, if not multiple times from Roxanne over 4 years. So I don't know. I'm just kind of curious. Maybe Antonio just feels humiliated and he just wants to be combative. I don't know. Or am I missing something?
I just can't imagine she complains about anybody other than like work. And I know what her criticisms of me are. I feel like I just got told some bullshit by Alex. I've had a lot of men try to take Roxanne from me. It's crazy, the messages that I get.
Interesting. I mean, I'm not picking up on all the nuances, but I think Alex was being, again, Alex could have been more diplomatic and said, hey, it's my opinion. I'm only saying this because I feel like you deserve better. And I'm saying that the way she talks about you, it seems like she thinks of you as a loser, which I don't think is fair to you, or something like that. You know, there's a way to say things. But, you know, Alex was not terrible in relation to that. But anyway, but even if Alex had been more diplomatic, I wonder if for Antonio, I mean, maybe Antonio's right, and what Alex said is ridiculous. It's hard to see it as ridiculous, right? And you know, maybe Roxanne is, you know, she talks a big game, but behind closed doors, she's very loving and caring and empathetic. You know, we've seen that, like Vanessa seemed to be that way last season, where she seemed really, really awful and lacking compassion. But hearing from Xander talking about Vanessa behind closed doors, that, you know, when Vanessa's not being triggered socially, she can be very warm and attentive and nice and da-da-da. But so maybe Roxanne's like that. But anyway, he says something interesting that, you know, many men, because Antonio has seen a lot of the, you know, it's interesting what he's experiencing here on the show. He's experienced, they've already done this a number of times, or they've broken up and Roxanne has been with another person. And it sounds like those are the fellas who contact him, because I'm guessing it's a similar dynamic where Roxanne leaves him or they break up, and then Roxanne's with a new man. And some of the conversations are talking about, you're just so much better than my previous. I wonder if there's a really weird dynamic going on there where Roxanne leaves him, gets with someone else that has more ambition, continues to exhibit her behavior that, they have her new boyfriend and her have a falling out, or the new boyfriend is like, whoa, you are something else with your behavior, and breaks up, and then she plummets and goes back to Antonio because she doesn't feel good about herself. I'm making up a story. But at any rate, he's saying many men have dated my girlfriend in between our breakups and have called me and told me this. Well, what did you say?
And I know what her criticisms of me are. I feel like I just got told some bullshit by Alex. I've had a lot of men try to take Roxanne from me. It's crazy, the messages that I get from other men that are trying to ruin our relationship.
Right. I didn't let him finish. So he's saying, that was one of the hypotheses I said earlier, is that he's hyper-focused on assuming that Alex is only saying these things because he's trying to draw a wedge and trying to get Roxanne. So I don't think that's what's happening, though. But he sees it that way because it actually has happened many times, right? And he just has this blanket policy of like, if you're telling me something negative about our relationship, I'm just going to assume that you're some kind of lying D-bag, and I'll just disregard that whole thing. And maybe he wished he would have confronted those previous fellas, and he's like, I'm going to let Alex have it, but he might. Now, maybe Antonio eventually hears it. At the very least, Antonio was with Kat, right, for a few weeks, and got a completely different vibe of like, oh, I feel very different. I feel like I'm safe to say things. You can imagine a pretty big contrast between Roxanne and Kat regarding that safety to say things and be yourself, because Kat is, at the very least, very a safe person to talk to, maybe too safe, meaning that she's an over-pleaser. But maybe that helped Antonio to contrast that and figure out. I guess I am hoping that Roxanne and Antonio break up. I guess that's what I'm revealing, which is, what do I know? What's best for the two of them? I don't know. But, I feel like with Trey, is the closest person to not needing. So I'd say Trey only needs like 5 years of therapy, and Antonio probably needs a good 15. James needs 30, not to punish him, but to, address all the topics that need to be addressed and all the healing that needs to be addressed. Maybe this should be my my ratings at the end of these. Is like, how many therapy years do I think each of these people need? And for the record, I think the healthiest person on the planet with the healthiest parents needs 5 years of therapy. I've thought that for a good number of years now. Let's see, Kat, she probably needs a good 15 as well. We don't know, at least 5 to 10 to really get to know herself and know that she doesn't have to please everyone. It's kind of hard to tell, though, because like with Xander, she was, you could argue, she looked like a pleaser as well. But there are people who are very pleasing and very accommodating and and they're never abrasive, but at the same time, when push comes to shove, they can assert themselves. So, maybe Kat's in that category, hard to tell. Anyway, Raya, I don't know. It's hard to say what her deal is. It could just be her age, that she's 24. So we didn't really see much with Raya in terms of, she did say that her childhood was very screwed up. So we're going to assume that, 20 years plus. And then with Ryan, I don't know. She seems, she gives a healthy vibe, at the very least from the edit, right? We don't know about that one. And then for Roxanne, I would say, I don't. It's so tempting to look at Roxanne, I guess, from my point of view. I don't know about y'all. I'm recording these, by the way, all these episodes before I have posted any of them, so I haven't seen any of the comments. So I have no idea, and I haven't looked online to see the general consensus about these folks. I never do that because I don't want that to influence me. But with Roxanne, I'm worried that I don't understand her in the same way that some of us were very misunderstanding of Vanessa. I mean, Vanessa has issues, you know. It's not like she's squeaky clean, but there's a possibility that Roxanne she's got a lot of therapy ahead of her. But there's also a possibility that she's just a very boisterous, open, honest sort of person, and it comes across. You know, Vanessa was kind of in that category as well. So, yeah. There's also some behaviors that we saw that were really quite. I mean, yeah, my range for Roxanne is from 10 to 50 years of therapy. I don't know. Could be 10, could be 50, could be 35. What do you think?
I'm used to it at this point, honestly, and I just feel like Alex is no different than that. I don't think he wants to be with Kat. I think that he sees Roxanne as somebody that he actually wants to be with.
Yeah, it's possible. It's possible. I mean, we did hear from Kat and Roxanne that Alex is a liar. So, yeah, it is possible. It's unfortunate if he does, because Roxanne is talking just tremendous amount of crap about Alex to Kat. Now, if in the end, which I'm sure y'all know because you watched the series, if Roxanne and Alex end up together, then whoa, what a Machiavellian scheme that they had going for them, that they would engineer a breakup between these other people so that they could be together. But I get the impression that Roxanne and Alex initially were kind of connecting because they were very business oriented and maybe some other things in common, but pretty quickly were being abrasive to each other, annoying each other in some very overt ways, which would make sense given Antonio's personality and Kat's personality, that these two abrasive people would only fit with people pleasers, right? Yeah. Oh, I feel bad for Antonio and Kat now.
I think it would make him happy to see us not be together. Every time I've asked you anything, you've kind of paraphrased. It would help me understand if.
So yeah, I didn't show this, but during the four dudes talking, Antonio was being very explicit with his questions to Alex, like, what do you think about Roxanne? What do you think about me? You know, he was being very upfront, which I kind of appreciate. He was asking questions that if I were on this show, which I never would be, but if I was, I would have an impulse to ask. But he was being kind of shifty around that. I think because he might be avoiding this conversation, or he's just not a very upfront person, or he doesn't even know what he wants. But the other possibility I was thinking was that he understands the contract that they're under. You know, it's pretty, I don't know, but I'm guessing it has some pretty specific language in there around, and maybe the producers have been reminding him that, because, you know, with Love is Blind, they are clearly instructed that they can't indicate to the cameras or to each other what they're going to do at the altar. They have to say, well, I'm going to make the choice at the altar. You know, clearly they have been semi-forced to do that. And there are times when someone is saying, you know, who was it during Love is Blind season 4? That someone's like, what are you going to do? Because it's rational to, even a few days before, to be like, are you going to say yes or no at the altar? Because, you know, I feel like I might say yes, but if you're going to say no, like, you got to tell me. And a lot of people on Love is Blind, they'll say like, well, there's a lot of, and you can see them really struggling because they have a normal impulse to want to say the truth, because that's what most people have an impulse for. But they know that they can't, so they have to answer it without answering it in this politician-y way. And I was wondering if Alex was doing that too, back when all the four dudes were talking. I don't know. It's also good to be possibly he's just shady or just not expressive or avoidant of that kind of stuff. But Antonio was getting annoyed with it. He's like, you know, you're pretty shifty, and I think given his traumas, unfortunately, having lost Roxanne and then having known about Roxanne's new boyfriends every now and then, that Antonio has a lot of hurt around that and anger, and has imposed a whole story on Alex that might not actually apply.
If you were being more direct, because I think you're still beating around the bush, how about you fucking talk shit about me to my face right now?
I don't know how it could be more direct. She doesn't respect you.
Yeah, I think a lot of viewers would agree with that, unless I'm missing something, which sometimes I do. So, yeah, I think Alex answered pretty well. So I don't know how to be more direct. I think she's mean to you. I think she disrespects you. I think that's what I'm saying, because that's what I think. All right, well, that does it for that episode, and I have an itch in my knee. And everyone, take care of yourself and itch your knee when you want to, because you deserve it. You really, really do.